I'm proud to have Steve King's endorsement, and I think that he has been wrongfully villainized by a media that not once has quoted the alleged racist remark or whatever it is that he made, and I just reject a lot of this mainstream media narrative thing. But for my purposes, he and I have found common cause in issues that no other Republican candidate is speaking to.
Okay, so stop for just a second to point out how utterly embarrassing it is that Ramaswamy's big announcement of a new endorsement is a disgraced former congressman. But he also threw out a challenge there. He said, not once has the media ever quoted the supposedly racist thing that he said. Okay, well, I like to make history, so let's do some quoting. Previously, Steve King, speaking of dreamers, says, for everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there that weighs 130 pounds, and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert. That's what he thinks about the dreamers. Sure, 1 out of 100 is a smart, upstanding person, but the rest are drug mules. Then, during the 2016 Republican National Convention, King claimed that non-white people have not contributed to civilization as much as whites, saying, I would ask you to go back through history and figure out where are these contributions that have been made by these other categories of people you're talking about? Where did any other subgroup of people contribute more to civilization? He also, by the way, was a huge fan of Geert Wilders, the Dutch politician who's largely out of the news these days, but he endorsed him in 2017, tweeting, Wilders understands that culture and demographics are our destiny. We can't restore our civilization with somebody else's babies. He also claimed in 2017 that white civilization was being wiped out because of the migrant crisis in Europe. And he defended a Wilders tweet saying, we're watching as Western civilization is shrinking in the face of the massive epic migration that is pouring into Europe. That's the core of that tweet. They're importing a different culture, a different civilization. And that culture and civilization, the imported one, rejects the host culture. So some fun virus talk about migrants there. When discussing the terminology like white nationalist, he had been accused of being a white nationalist or white supremacist. He said, white nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization, how did that language become offensive? Why did I sit in classes teaching me about the merits of our history and our civilization? Yeah, when did white supremacist become a bad thing? It used to be great, you could just claim it. He said at one point, by the way, we don't have a graphic for this, the idea of multiculturalism, that every culture is equal, that's not objectively true. We've been fed that information for the past 25 years, and we're not going to become a greater nation if we continue to do that. Yeah, some cultures are just better than other cultures, but nothing racist has been quoted, right? Okay, back in 2006 on the House floor, he did a little science project. He demonstrated a model of a 12-foot concrete border wall topped with electrified wire that he designed. Quote, we need to do a few other things on top of that wall, and one of them being to put a little bit of wire on top here to provide a disincentive for people to climb over the top or put a ladder there. We could also electrify this wire. We do that with livestock all the time.
Christ.
This is literally him acting out on the House floor, a scene from the Coneheads movie. Anyway, we can throw out other stuff. Back in 2005, he sued the Secretary of State of Iowa because they posted voting information in Spanish, Laotian, Bosnian, and Vietnamese. And he found that to be so objectionable that he sued them. He also, by the way, said at one point, cultural suicide by demographic transformation must end. In 2017, he recommended the explicitly racist novel Camp of the Saints on a radio show. He's recommended it multiple times. I'm just citing one of them. He said at one point in agreeing with Viktor Orban, he said, quote, mixing cultures will not lead to a higher quality of life, but a lower one. He also endorsed Faith Goldy, a mayoral candidate for Toronto, who had recited the 14 words used by neo-Nazis and gave an interview to a podcast for the neo-Nazi website, The Daily Stormer. Neither of those was an issue for Steve King.
Okay, John.
Did I not go on?
But besides that.
But besides those, nobody in media has ever quoted the supposedly racist thing that he said.
Okay, but the other quote, I feel like you quoted all those like accurately, but like quote one of them inaccurately, and that was the one that Vivek was talking about.
Probably. Anyway, it's just
it's wild.
Such a joke.
No, dude, Steve King is a Nazi. Let's put that aside. Ramaswamy is an interesting trial balloon, I think, as is Nikki Haley, given that they're both South Asian American. And given that Ramaswamy specifically posits himself as, an immigrant, a brown guy, but who's someone who will not at all talk about structural racism or systemic racism against specifically Black Americans and Latinos and immigrants who come through the southern border, come from, down there, not by plane over there, even though so many Latin Americans come by plane, but we don't have to talk about them. And the trial balloon is this: has the MAGA base, have Republicans become so actually racist and white nationalists that they would never vote for someone like Vivek Ramaswamy? Or are they comfortable enough with someone like him because he gets his fame and his accolades by throwing communities of color and other immigrant communities that isn't him, his immediate family, and maybe the town he grew up in, under the bus? So everyone else can be thrown under the bus and be sacrificed. He can buy into the yes, multiculturalism is bad for us, except for me and my family, and I will be your perfect little Trojan horse to carry out your white nationalist plans. That's the real question.
Yeah, I obviously could go on for a long time about this. I will try not to. I will just say, by the way, as a white person, I don't know what it must be like if you're not white and you're trying to fit in to a group that is explicitly racist, but for other reasons, you do want to be a part of that group. Maybe you agree with them politically. Maybe you think that they're easier marks for your grift. I don't know, whatever it is. I don't know what that's like, managing that. But I know what he's doing. He is literally the child of migrants. And he is touting the endorsement of a man who has repeatedly said that migrants, like his parents coming in, is how civilization ends. Not all of them, only the ones that matter. The white Western civilizations fall because they're destroyed by importing other people's babies. He's other people's baby. He's the baby of other people, migrants from another country. He has, according to Steve King, made America weaker by his presence. Both his parents and him have weakened us and might cause the downfall of our great lily white civilization. That is who he is touting right now. It's just insane. I'm sure that he's making a lot of money. I'm sure that he's made the calculation that this is worth it for audience or Instagram followers or whatever the hell it is that he's doing this for. But it is sick in multiple different ways.
Yeah, he wants that honorary whiteness card. He wants to be one of the quote unquote good ones, but he'll still be, at the end of the day, one of the ones.
Yeah, literally, it is just the entire thing, the entire grift is so sickening. I don't even like talking about it because I feel like to talk about it, you dirty yourself, you sully yourself by being involved in something that is so obviously dishonest and dirty and gross.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.